Hello and welcome to the Deacon Dad. With all of this stuff going on this week and this month, I talked to my daughter the other day and she told me she was very proud of me for being open-minded, for changing. I was not always open-minded. I am now. And I've noticed that a lot of people that I believed were open-minded before are very closed-minded today. And that makes me sad. It makes me really sad. Because it gives me a different view of that person that I'd really rather not see. With all of the stuff that's going on recently, I told my daughter, we were talking about racism and we were talking about systemic problems. And while I was talking to her, I told her that I think there's a bigger problem than just racism. There's a bigger problem in the fact that we need to look at the root causes of all these problems. Racism is definitely a problem. Systemic racism is prevalent in almost everything. Now, whenever we talk about racism, I'm not just talking about whites and blacks separate or Latinos separate. It's a combination of everything that makes up racism. So whenever we look at what's going on, I look at both what's happening in the black community, what's happening in the white community. I listen to people on both sides of the aisle. And I try to be objective. I try to look at both sides and say, okay, this is what I see that's wrong over here, and then I see this wrong over here. Well, in some societies, you can do that. You can sit back and listen and be objective. Sometimes you can be that person that can sit back and look at both sides objectively and say, okay, maybe let's solve this problem. Or maybe this is the root of the problem that's just now coming out, or it's been out there but not been addressed. I hear a lot today about systemic racism on the police force. There's systemic racism in every neighborhood. Whenever I say systemic racism, I'm not talking about whites being racist. I'm not talking about blacks being racist. I kind of jumble them all together because I'm listening and I'm watching. And I see on one side Black Lives Matter, on the other side all lives matter. Well, they're both true. Black lives do matter. And whenever you have a police officer come out and do a horrible thing, then it makes the world sad. It makes people angry. So I understand when people protest. I really do. If I could drive to one of those protests and lay down in the street, I would. But unfortunately, I can't drive. So all I can do is post on social media. I can talk about it during my podcast. I see that. I see the hurt in the people's faces. And I condemn white supremacy, black fascist, black supremacy. I condemn all supremacy. Whether you're black, white, Latino, any race. I don't think any race is above any other race. Is it okay to say that Japanese kids are smarter than American kids? Or that all 7-Elevens are owned by Indians? I think it is. Because what you're doing is you're segregating each group of people instead of saying one group of people. We're all human. We all have different ideas. We have different ways of expressing ourselves. But expressing ourselves doesn't come at the expense of another person. So whenever I see the protest, I'm very proud. I'm very excited. I'm happy to be an American because I know we can do that here. I remember Tiananmen Square and what went on there. And I was proud of them. And I'm so proud of the Americans protesting today because they're doing it peacefully. They're doing it with respect. Police officers are walking with them. State officials are walking with them. Senators are walking with them. Congressmen. But what I don't see a reason for is the vandalism and the looting, stealing, and shooting. Why is it different for someone to shoot a police officer and a police officer shoot someone else? People say police officers are held at a higher standard. Why? Shouldn't we all have the same standard? Treat everybody equally. That's the standard that I want. To forget about black, white, yellow, brown, and say, we. We the people of the United States. We the people of the world. Because that's what we are. We're people. We're human. We're all going to have different viewpoints. That is a blessing. Because if we all thought the same, it would be so boring and dull. I don't know if I'd want a part of that. What we have is a lot of people with a lot of different ideas. And those different ideas can bring us together instead of tearing us apart. I used to be a homophobe because I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any experience with that community. So I looked at it as something different that I didn't want to be a part of. Whenever I was in fact a part of it, I was happy once I figured out that I was a problem. That it was me. It wasn't the world. It wasn't the LGBT community. It was me. I was the problem. Whenever I got to know that community and those people, it was we. It was we the people. There was no gay, straight, bi. It was not. It was just people. It was we the people. And I think we're missing that point today. As we address these problems, we have to address what is the focal point of these problems. It could be anything from police presence in a community involvement. How are those police involved in your community? What do they do to support that community? Then we have to flip it on the other side. What does that community do to support the police? And whenever we answer both of those questions, that would resolve a lot of this whenever we could discuss it as adults and say, both sides, here's what we see that's wrong, here's what we see that's wrong. And bring it back to we the people. So if we dig down in these scenarios, what causes this systemic racism? It's not slavery from 200 plus years ago. It's nothing to do with that. This happens today. And regardless of what happened in the past, we have to move on from that. We have to deal with what's here today. And I definitely am on the side of knocking out racism wherever I see it. If I see somebody make a racist comment, I say something to them. I tell them, really, that's not fair to that person. I may get yelled at, I may get cussed at, but I'm going to express my opinion, and maybe, just maybe, they'll think about it later. Now, this comes from churchgoers on both sides of the aisle. We go to church on Sundays, and we become a different person. We forget about what went on during the week, apparently, for that hour and a half, 2 hours. And we think all is great in the world. You sing your hymns, you listen to the pastor, you associate, you have fellowship, and then you walk away. And for a lot of people, that stays away. But what we need to do is find a way to keep that feeling, to keep that fellowship with our fellow man. Now, even if you're not a churchgoer or you don't believe in God, you still can have that community. You can still say, we the people want to be like this, and make it happen. Find ways in your community to help. Now, whenever I go back to the what can the police do and what can the community do, there's a lot of things. You know, the community's held back by jobs, by gangs, I just look at Chicago and I'm saying, okay, wow, today 19 murders. It's nuts. That's not being addressed. We throw more and more money at the police department whenever it's not the police departments that's causing this. What it is doing is bringing the police department into the neighborhoods whenever this is going on. But a lot of times whenever they go into the neighborhood, it's what can the community do for the police department? They have to speak up. They have to say, we know the gangs are here. We know the drugs are here. We know they're in this apartment. We know that the gangs hang out right here. Help them protect you. and for the police. Become a part of that community. Whether it's a black community or a white community, Hispanic, become a part of that community, because we can't just have black cops in black neighborhoods, white cops in white neighborhoods. Segregation ended years ago. But I know those neighborhoods still haven't. They haven't changed. We see people move from the slums to cities and move up. Okay, move out of that situation. But it's difficult to move out of that situation. You've got to have money. You got to have a job. And a lot of those things aren't available to people in the inner cities. It's really hard for them to move forward. Look at a homeless person. Do you think they want to be homeless? No. But they finally hit that last straw that they can't crawl back from. I know I've talked to hundreds of homeless people, and that is the biggest hurdle, is I got so far down that I can't get back up. And now that I'm so far down, I've had to resort to things that I would never resort to. And that's bothersome. It's worrisome. But whenever we look at communities, we have to know, how are we assisting the police officers? I want police officers to be more involved in the community, to do more role modeling in the community. I want young black kids to see older police officers that are black alongside their friends that are white or Hispanic. I want them to see that. I want them to see how these people get along. And I want those police officers out there playing ball with the kids. Whatever they can do, we know who needs help in the community. So let's speak out. Let's not just go to our friends and neighbors and say, hey, I have a problem, I need some help. Let other people know. And whenever the police are trying to be involved with something, say, you know what? I have Miss Hanson over here who is fixing to lose everything. She can't afford her mortgage. She can't buy groceries. She can't get her yard mowed. Anything like that. It's hard because there's a fine line between becoming a social worker and being a police officer. But you have to do both of those, really. And if they call and they can't get anything, or they have no one that they can send over there to mow a yard, maybe we can do like I do as a deacon. I have a list of organizations that will help people in need like that. And that's what I do. I refer them a lot of times when I can't afford to do something for the church because we don't have it in our benevolence fund. We reach out to other groups. Maybe those groups could be a part of the community and help out people and not just stay away. We have some really large groups that deal with black communities that could help out a lot. And I'm not saying they don't. But whenever I look at these large organizations who spend all this money on leaders of that organization and spend very few dollars with the people who actually need it. When I was growing up, I would see the NAACP commercials with No One Left Behind. And that still sticks with me. We don't need anybody left behind. We don't need these communities left behind. We don't need to segregate our police force. I've never been a fan of that. I've never been a fan of segregation at all. But I've seen it. And I still see it today. Whenever I go through different neighborhoods, I can see how people are segregating themselves away from each other. You don't have people that make $100,000 living next to people that make $25,000, $30,000 a year. Because they want to be separated. They want to be at a higher level. They're going to buy the nicer houses. They're going to drive the nicer cars. And they're not going to associate with those making less than they are. As you climb up that ladder and you start making more and more and more, your friends dwindle. You have a lot of people that want to hang out with you. A lot of your new people that want to hang out with you. But take that money away. Go back to where you were 10 years ago. Would those same people still want to hang out with you? Look at it the other side. Where you were 10 years ago, would those people from 10 years ago want to hang out with you today? No, because you've changed. They haven't changed. You've changed. Now, how is it their fault that you feel like you're better than them? And you don't even admit that you feel like you're better than them. You just feel like, I'm in a different place in life than I was then. They should be happy for me. But it's not like that because they're still in that same place. And they may be a little envious of you. But then they get back to their roots and they look around at their neighbors and they still have those neighbors that they're bonded. They're together. They're loving. So we have to get back to that place to where we're all the same, where we, the people. And that's where we got to go. And we got to get back to that. I say we got to get back to that. We have to move forward to that. We have to get out of the isms. We have to get out of, the racism, the tensions that go along with that. We have to get rid of police that are skirting through the system because the police unions hide them. Believe me, most police officers would want to get rid of the bad apples. They would. I mean, if they could do it, they would get rid of them. But they can't. Their hands are tied most of the time by contracts negotiated with police unions that make it hard to fire anybody. Just like working for the government, you have such strong unions, and the rules for firing somebody is pages and pages and pages long. Me and you, we do something wrong at work, we're fired. We're done. But those people have so many opportunities. You can't fire somebody after, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 instances because they don't look at them cumulatively. They only look at them one at a time. And the police union stands up for these guys. Just as in the inner city communities, they don't stand up for gangs. But they don't report it whenever the police are trying to investigate. They don't say, I saw this, I saw this, I saw this, because they're scared. They're scared of retaliation, what's going to happen to them. However, whenever we break it all down, a lot of that comes from there. Why would businesses want to open up in those communities when they have gangs there that will rip them off, will steal from them, will scare their customers away? Why would a business want to open up there? Businesses want safe communities and places where they can lock their doors and not have to put up bars. You have to make your community that way. And if that takes sharing information with the police, then share the information. And if police see each other and they see somebody doing something wrong, you take care of that person. You bring it out and address it right then. Dude, really? You know what that's going to do for our relationship with the community? You got to stop. And yes, I'm reporting you because I can't have you dictating what people think about me. I want people to respect me. I want people to look up to me. Because even though I'm not supposed to be held at a higher standard, I'm supposed to be there with we, the people. I feel as though I am expected to be at a higher standard because I swore an oath. The people in the community didn't swear an oath to me. I swore an oath to them that I would protect them and I would serve them. Not that I would beat them. Not that I would put my knee in the neck of anybody. Not that I would hold somebody down on the ground that was not resisting. No, if they're resisting, I'm going to hold them down. If they're on psychedelic drugs that give them superhuman strength, which happens, as an EMT and a paramedic, I saw that. It took everything I had to put people that were on those drugs and get them on a gurney and keep them there. Some of those people broke the straps. Now, those people right there, you have to find ways to hold them down. I'm not saying a knee in the neck. But you may have 4 people sitting on top of them to hold them down so they can restrain them properly. That happens. But to do it, just to be doing it, is wrong. In the latest incident with George Floyd, they had rookies out there. Those rookies were learning from those cops, from their senior fellows. What were they learning? They were learning that it's okay to put a knee in the neck of somebody for almost 9 minutes. They were okay with people yelling, I can't breathe. They learned that from those senior officers. because the senior officers say that's what everybody says. Everybody wants you off of them, so that's what they say. I can't breathe. Or if they're talking, they're breathing. Well, technically, if you're talking, that means you are getting air. But what happens when you think you can't breathe? Panic ensues. Your body tenses up. You start having issues that compound one on top of the other, and boom, you can die. But you were breathing. In your head, you knew you weren't breathing. You couldn't get past that. You were buried in that thought that I've got somebody on my neck and I can't breathe. And with George Floyd, he said, please stand me up. Please turn me over. Stand up. Stand me up so I can breathe. And that officer didn't. And you had other officers there, younger officers, that were saying, can't we roll him over? Let's just stand him up. And he said, no. We're going to keep him like this. And they kept him like that for almost 9 minutes. He wasn't fighting. The videos show that. This was all over a fake $20 bill. Is a man's life worth a fake $20 bill? No. You have him in custody. You have him in handcuffs. Call the wagon. Tell him to come get him, so that he's not locked in the back of a police car and feels even more claustrophobic. You can call the wagon. They can come get him. He's got a place to sit up. He's got some room. Maybe that could have happened. Maybe a different cop at that moment would have handled it correctly. Because even though you only have a split second to make a decision, this cop had 9 minutes. And his decision was absolutely wrong. That's what breaks down the trust between the black community and the rest of the world. Because the black community suffers this a lot. They suffer it a lot because that's where they're focused. Because that's where a lot of the crime goes on. The communities need to spend, in my opinion, the opinion of an old fat white guy who's lived a good life, but has also lived some times that were pretty bad. My opinion, and I'm trying every way I can think to help in how we react to this situation. It's not by looting. It's not by rioting. It's by protesting. And from that protest, you gain talk and conversation. And in that conversation, you bring up both sides of it. You bring up the police, and the police bring up what's going on in the community, and the community brings up what's going on in the police department. And somebody's got to sit there and say, stop. How is a community helping the police, and how is the police helping the community? To protect and serve means to serve, not to kneel on somebody's neck. That means to serve justice, to restrain and place in a police car. You're not the judge, jury to sit on somebody's neck until they die. The community has a responsibility in that also, in helping get rid of the gangs and the drug dealers. They have to find a way that they're not scared to do that. There's tip lines out there. You can be anonymous. If something's going on and you happen to be a witness to it and somebody knows that you're the only witness to it, that's hard. But when a community knows what's going on and nobody still says anything, that's not hard, that's wrong. If I had drug dealers living right down the road from me, I'd be on the phone today with the police saying, can y'all please keep an eye on this house? I know they're dealing drugs out of it. Whenever you're in a community that is already impoverished, it's been beaten down by society, not beaten down by the police, but by society itself. The government gets you relying on handouts, and then you're reliant on the government. I'm not saying handouts are wrong. I'm not saying that entitlements are wrong. I believe in them. I believe in entitlements being for people who need them. But then I look at this and say, okay, how are these people going to get a job? How are they going to do that? Because you have no businesses wanting to go in this community because they don't feel it's safe. So there's a balance that's got to be struck. We have to break the barriers of the police union and say if somebody screws up, they get prosecuted. There's not even a question about it. They're going to get prosecuted. All those prosecutions don't always work. They don't always go through. Just like whenever they arrest a gang member that they know, they have video of them killing somebody. They can't get anybody to testify to it. And the jury has nothing to go by on what actually happened other than they watched a video and somebody got shot. They don't know what caused that argument. They don't know anything about it. They just know somebody got shot. And the community is no longer looking at the police force as somebody that protects them. They're looking at somebody who comes into their neighborhood every day and harasses people. They shouldn't be doing that. They should be becoming a part of the community with you. But that community also has to accept them coming in and being a part of that community. They can't just turn their nose up and say, we don't want this guy in here. He doesn't fit in our neighborhood. We, the people, we have the love. We have the understanding. We have God on our side. And we can do this. But it's going to take all parties sitting down and saying, here's my issues, here's my issues. We have to be able to come together with them and put it all together and say, okay, here's how we can fix it. Not just say the police are wrong. All the police are bad. Not saying this whole community is bad. A whole race? Really? The whole race is bad. The whole police force? Really? The whole police force is bad. No. You have bad people in each group. We have to root out those bad people. We have to fix our justice system. Criminals are still criminals. There's nothing you can do about that. You have criminals in every race. You have criminals within every organization, to include the police. They have to be accountable for their actions. So let's look at every angle here. What can we do to keep people from doing the same thing over and over again? How do we say somebody's rehabilitated and put them out in the society? Whenever you do that, you're taking a gamble. And you have to take that gamble because you just can't leave everybody in jail. But if you have somebody that did one thing and they come back out and they do it again, why are they out again? We've had people get out of the system that had killed 3 people and they got out because of time served with good behavior or because their lawyer found a loophole to get them out. And they back out on the streets and they kill 4 more people. But now they know how to hide their crime and they finally get caught. And they've killed 4 more people. Shame on us. Shame on we, the people. Guys, we got to come together. We can get through this. We can rise above and we can become we, the people. And I know that God can get us there. But we have to be willing to accept the hurt that comes along with getting there. Everybody's going to get their feelings hurt along the way. That's just how it works. That's being human. Your way is the right way. Well, nobody's way is the right way. Side A, side B. It's not the right way. But we're still here. We're still got to live together. We still are going to have to address these systemic problems. But we can do it with God's help. Dear Lord, we reach out to you because we're in such a time of need right now. We're in such a trial. So many people hurting, so many people angry, so many people that have lost trust in their community and in their police force and in total races. You have people that are against another race. We've had that before with the KKK, and we've had it before in many other groups. And we can't have that today. We can't stand for it. We can't stand for it one way or the other. I don't like either one of them, and I think they're all wrong. But don't let us fall into traps of doing the same thing that they do. Don't let us look at another race and think, God, I hate those guys. Lord, give us the strength and the courage and the guidance that will get us past all this, that we can rise above it and become a better people. We can become we, the people. We can put our differences aside and make things work. We can work together to root out the evil, the gangs, and the police that are doing the wrong things. We can do that with your help. Dear Lord, we ask for your comfort and your guidance and your strength. We ask for understanding, and we ask that we can all sit down together and come above this. I know we can. I know we can rise above it. We may be just humans, but we were created in your image, and we can do wonderful, wonderful things. We just have to do it. We have to be able to stand up. Stand up to the bad guys. Bad guys are everywhere. But we, the people, can rise above this. Please give us some strength and some understanding and a way to open our minds, open our hearts to each other, because we know that people are hurting. Open our minds so we can get together and we can work out this problem. I think it's something we can work out. We just have to have your help. I believe we can ask for your help, and you will give it to us. And that's what I'm asking for today, Lord. We thank you for everything that you give us. We thank you for our lives. We thank you for our livelihoods. And we praise you with everything that's within us. Thank you. It's in God's name we pray. Amen. Thank you for joining me on this journey of my thoughts. I hope you come back. I hope you listen. And I'm wide open to communication. You can leave me a message on Twitter, on Facebook, or on my podcast site at thedeacondad.com. I'm so proud to have you listening. And I think that we, the people, needs to start with me, the person. This podcast is how to deal with emotions. I don't think that there's a more relevant issue today, and our emotions are so strung out on this. So next week we will hit another emotion. What it's going to be is a good guess. I don't know, but I look forward to you being here. Thanks, and God bless.